Jake, after 17 years, we're eliminating your role. Daniel didn't even pause. No build-up. No apology. Just those few words that dropped like a stone in a still pond. I stood there, barely breathing, my hands at my sides, still holding the pen I'd brought in to take meeting notes out of habit. I guess. Vanessa from HR was already seated in the corner, a folder in her lap, her expression carefully neutral. My name is Jake Wilson. I'm 54 years old. Until precisely 9:08 a.m. on a Monday in April, I was the senior systems analyst at Meridian Technologies in Columbus, Ohio. For 17 years, I'd been the guy behind the curtain, the one who kept the lights on, the servers humming, and the files retrievable, even when no one else could. I'd watched the company change faces, change slogans, change CEOs, 3 of them, but I stayed. Always. Through every holiday weekend, every emergency, every lost password or corrupted drive. I was there. So no. I wasn't surprised. I saw it coming. The silence in meetings. The way my admin privileges started quietly shifting. The small glances exchanged between younger staff when I walked by. The writing had been on the wall. Still, hearing it out loud felt like someone closing a door you didn't know was open behind you. I understand. I said simply. My voice didn't waver. I didn't ask why. I didn't argue. I stood up, buttoned my shirt sleeve with mechanical care, and walked out of that office without looking back. There was no farewell speech, no final handshake, just a silence that pressed against my shoulders as I returned to my desk. Some of the junior engineers glanced up when I passed by, eyes wide, hands pausing over their keyboards. Kids I had trained myself. Some of them were good, most very fast. None of them really understood the framework they'd inherited. The backbone of Meridian's infrastructure wasn't in the codebase. It was in the history, the trial and error, the patches and shortcuts, the decisions made at 3 a.m. during data breaches and server crashes. I'd buried layers of logic inside the systems. Redundancies only. I understood. Custom-built software solutions no one else could decipher without hours of reverse engineering. I began to pack slowly. No rush. Family photo from a beach vacation 15 years ago. Coffee mug, my son made in ceramics class. A cactus I had named Fred, still alive. Somehow, under office lights, older than most interns, Bethany from marketing appeared beside me, face tight with emotion. Jake, I just heard, this is insane. You basically built this place. I shrugged. Companies change. I said, but after everything you've done, without warning, her voice caught and rose a little. Others started to look up. I offered her a small smile. It's fine, I said quietly. It wasn't. But what else was I going to do? Cry in the break room? No. I had too much dignity for that. Daniel didn't say goodbye. Didn't even look at me when I walked past his office door. Just watched through the glass, making sure I kept walking. And I did. I stepped into the elevator, held the box with both hands, and stared straight ahead. They had no idea what they'd just done. Some story don't scream. They whisper. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. This place, these words, they matter. You're listening to Voices Stories. The parking lot was half empty when I walked out. Box in hand. Spring sunlight tried its best to make everything look normal. Green buds on trees. A breeze, just strong enough to ruffle the tie I no longer had reason to wear. But nothing felt normal. I sat in my car for a long moment, holding the steering wheel like I was waiting for someone to tell me what to do next. No one did. Across the windshield stood the building I had walked into almost every weekday since 2006. Back when Meridian was just 2 floors in a boxy business park, no fancy lobby. No wellness pods. No. Innovation labs. Just wires. Data. And too much coffee. Back then, Olivia had just started kindergarten. Now she was finishing grad school. I had watched her grow taller year after year, as that company grew taller, too, floor by floor. Acquisition by acquisition. There was something comforting in the parallel. Like we were building something together. Like I was giving her stability by staying. I'd turned down offers. Better pay. Better titles. But Meridian was home. Or so I thought. Andrea used to joke that I treated the servers better than I treated our cars. She wasn't wrong. I knew those systems inside and out. Not just the layout, but their history. Their little quirks. The way server C12 threw errors during daylight saving time. The one switch on the third floor rack that only rebooted if you jiggled the cable just right. I didn't just maintain the architecture. I lived in it. But it wasn't just the systems that had aged. It was me. I wasn't the hungry 20-something anymore. I was the guy. People stopped asking for ideas and started asking for documentation. That's how you know it's coming. When they stop asking what you think and start asking how to do what you do. Without you, I started the engine. Drove home on autopilot. The roads were the same. But I wasn't. The house welcomed me like nothing had changed. Andrea was on the porch with a book. She looked up and saw the box in my arms. Didn't say anything. Just nodded. We'd been married long enough that she didn't need to ask. I walked into my home office, set the box down, and sat in the chair that had molded to my shape over the years. The silence was heavier here. No humming server racks. No chatter. Just me and the weight of what had been taken away. But also, the weight of what I still carried. Because here's the thing. They never paid attention to, never asked about I knew things. No one else knew. Not secrets. Not gossip. Blueprints. Shortcuts. Blind spots. Backdoors I'd built into the systems when we were still flying by the seat of our pants and needed instant fixes at 2A. M. Legacy code that no one had cleaned up because no one even knew it was there. I wasn't just part of the machine. I was the person who wrote the instruction manual. And I had kept every draft. Daniel didn't waste time when he first came on board. Fresh out of some fancy MBA program. All posture and polished shoes. He walked like someone who thought efficiency came from cutting. Not building. He called us IT resources. Not people. That was the first red flag. The second was how he never really listened. He'd nod. Smile. Then do exactly what he was going to do anyway. At first, I tried. Tried to bring him into the fold. Tried to help him understand what was buried underneath the clean dashboards and modern UI years of patchwork solutions. Legacy code. Brittle integrations. Systems cobbled together, not by design, but by necessity. We need to future-proof. He'd say in meetings. Staring right past me like I was already part of the past. 6 months ago, he brought in a consultant, Jason Phillips. Tanned. Crisp suit. Stanford degree plastered across his LinkedIn. He looked like someone who used the word disruption unironically. From the first day Jason walked in, I felt the shift. They'd disappear into meeting rooms with the blinds closed. Lower their voices when I passed by. Smile too much when I asked what the meeting was about. 3 months ago, I noticed the first change. A slight modification to my access permissions, nothing overt. Just enough to make certain admin tasks suddenly not available. It was subtle. Intentional. I could have raised a flag. Instead, I waited. Watched. Noticed more things. Suddenly, project briefs stopped arriving in my inbox. Weekly update meetings were canceled. Code reviews normally sent to me were now routed to junior team members. Andrea noticed first. We were sitting on the porch one night. Her with a tea. Me with a beer. You've been quiet lately, she said. Eyes not leaving the stars. Just changes. I replied. Work stuff. Different kind of change, she asked. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She squeezed my hand. But it was different. This wasn't the usual corporate churn. One night, while doing a routine maintenance scan, something nobody really bothered with anymore, I stumbled on a memo. A file buried in a shared folder that should have been locked down. Subject line, IT Department Modernization Initiative, Q3, timeline. And just like that, It all made sense. The document outlined a complete restructuring, new leadership, streamlined teams. Jason Phillips' name was listed as interim director. My position wasn't mentioned at all. Not moved. Not reassigned. Just omitted, like I'd already been erased. I stared at the screen, the glow painting my face in shades of betrayal. So that's what this was. Not a misunderstanding. Note budget cuts. They were making room for someone new. Someone flashier, with better hair and a shinier resume. They just didn't think I'd notice. But I did. It started like any other late-night task. A system scan. One of those background sweeps that no one else bothered with anymore. Not since the dashboards got prettier and the staff younger. But I still ran them. Because sometimes, the most dangerous things don't set off alarms. They just hide. That night, as the progress bar crawled across the screen, I sipped my coffee and let the logs unfold. Line after line of code. Transactions. Access logs. Activity summaries. Then something strange. Regular payments made to a vendor named Apex Solutions Group. The name rang no bells. I'd never seen it before in any project documentation. Never approved a contract with them. Never heard it mentioned in any of the dozens of IT planning meetings I'd attended over the years. That alone was enough to get my attention. But what made me sit up was the pattern. Small transactions at first. $2. Sambe. Su. Tibet. Woo. eBay. Then slowly, they began to grow. Each payment approved like clockwork. Almost too perfect. No delays. No red flags. Just a quiet siphon in motion. I looked up the company. Apex Solutions Group had been registered the previous year. The listed business address, UPS, mailbox in a strip mall 20 minutes from our office. That wasn't just odd. That was deliberate. The payments were routed through our financial systems using the same category tags as legitimate vendors. Whoever set this up knew exactly how to keep it below the radar. I didn't say a word to anyone. Just copied the logs, stored the evidence, and waited. Most people think silence means ignorance. They think quiet people miss things. But we don't. We just record it all. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't about being phased out. This wasn't cost-cutting or a new direction. This was house cleaning. A sweep to remove the one person who might ask the wrong question, or find the right answer. They'd underestimated me. Tuesday morning arrived like a question with no answer. No alarm. No traffic. No inbox full of requests. Just quiet. I sat in my home office. Fingers tracing the edge of my coffee mug, the one with the chip on the handle. A minor imperfection that somehow made it mine. Andrea brought it in silently and left without a word. That was her way. After 19 years together, she knew when space was more comforting than speech. I stared at my personal laptop. The screen was black. But in my mind, everything was lighting up. I reached down, opened the bottom drawer of my desk, and pulled out a small silver flash drive. It had no label. Just a scratch near the port that marked it from the others I kept hidden. I plugged it in, waited, then opened the folder titled simply Archive. Inside were years of carefully curated files. Internal communications, system diagrams, email threads, financial reports. Some of it I shouldn't have had. Most of it no one ever noticed I had. But years ago, when the legal team needed help creating a security protocol for monitoring insider threats, I'd insisted on off-site backups. They agreed, signed the paperwork, then forgot. I didn't, and now, those quiet folders carried truths that no one at Meridian wanted to face. I started sorting. There they were, transaction logs to Apex Solutions Group, dating back 18 months. Amounts listed, approval timestamps, digital signatures, and a pattern. Each charge aligned perfectly with license renewals for widely used software, except the totals were always off. Always inflated. Sometimes by 12%. Sometimes 18%. Just enough to pass without scrutiny. But over time, It added up. I ran a quick business lookup for Apex Solutions again. This time, I dug deeper. The listed owner, Thomas Wilcox. That last name hit me like a gust of cold air. Wilcox, as in Brian Wilcox, our CFO. Thomas was his brother-in-law. I pulled up social media profiles to confirm. Family photos, tagged events, holiday barbecues. It wasn't speculation anymore. It was collusion. It was theft. The realization didn't come as rage. It came as stillness. Not the stunned kind, more like the kind you feel right before a storm rolls in. For 17 years, I'd patched holes, fixed bugs, solved problems no one even saw. I'd never asked for recognition. But now, I was done fixing. This wasn't a broken system. It was a corrupt one. And I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. Some stories don't need to be loud. They just need someone to truly listen. If you're here with us, thank you. This is Voices Stories, where quiet voices speak the loudest. Wednesday morning. I woke before the sun. No alarm. No noisy. Just a kind of stillness that felt sharpened, like the silence right before a match is struck. I got dressed slower than usual. Not because I was tired, but because I knew exactly what I was going to do. I'd spent the night planning every step. My laptop was already set up on the dining room table. Beside it, a flash drive, my coffee, and a simple notepad with a single sentence scribbled across the top. Make them react before they regroup. By 8:00 a.m. I was parked across the street from Meridian's headquarters. It was strange seeing the building from the outside, watching people shuffle through the glass doors like nothing had changed, like I hadn't been erased from that place just 2 days ago. But they were wrong to think I'd walked away empty-handed. In the passenger seat sat my personal laptop logged into an old email account I'd created years ago for internal security testing. It looked like a Meridian domain, but wasn't listed in the company's central directory. At exactly 9:15 a.m., I sent the first move, an email addressed directly to Daniel. Subject line, financial irregularities, urgent review needed. The message was brief, professional. It included a high-level summary of the payments to Apex Solutions. Nothing emotional. Nothing dramatic. No mention of his involvement. No mention of the name Wilcox. Just enough information to make him nervous. To force movement. To trigger mistakes. At 9:45, my phone rang. Daniel's number. I didn't answer. His voicemail was tight with panic. Jake, we need to talk. Right away. Call me back immediately. I shut off the phone. At 10:30, another email arrived, this time from Vanessa in HR. Cold. Formal. Mr. Wilson, we've received communications from you that may violate your separation agreement. Please cease contact with all Meridian employees. Further outreach may result in legal action. They were trying to scare me off. But I hadn't signed a separation agreement, because they hadn't given me one. They were assuming the playbook still worked, but I wasn't following their rules anymore. At noon, I drove to my bank, accessed my safe deposit box. Inside was another backup drive older, but more dangerous. It held original protocols I'd written years ago, documentation on every change, every request, every access log meticulously timestamped. And there it was, a request, signed by Brian Wilcox, to expand his access permissions 18 months ago. Right when Apex had come online, I smiled to myself. They thought they could remove me like a faulty component, but I wasn't a part of the machine. I was the one who wrote its heartbeat. By the time I got home that afternoon, 3 calls had come in. Daniel, Vanessa, and Jason Phillips. That last one surprised me. I hadn't expected the golden consultant to get involved this soon, which told me one thing. They were nervous. I didn't answer any of the calls. Instead, I opened my personal email. A new message. Subject line, urgent. What's going on? It was from Stephen. Stephen was one of the few people I'd taken under my wing these past couple years. A sharp kid. Humble. Curious. He'd come to me fresh out of college. Eager to learn. Eager to prove. And I taught him everything I could. Now he was caught in the middle. Jake. The message read, "Everyone's talking. They're saying you sent some kind of email about financial fraud. Phillips just called an emergency meeting. They're pulling your access to everything, even old logs. We can't do our jobs. What's happening?" I read it twice. Then replied with just 4 words. "Don't get involved. Stephen, just watch." He didn't answer. At 3:03 p.m., the landline rang. That number hadn't rung in years. Only a few people even had it. I picked up but said nothing. The voice on the other end was calm, controlled. "Jake, this is Brian Wilcox." For a second, I almost didn't recognize the voice. It lacked the smugness I remembered from budget meetings. No, it was, "Careful. We should talk," he continued. "About your concerns. I think there's been a misunderstanding." I said nothing. You know how these transitions go. Things get messy. If you have questions about company finances, the board is the appropriate place. I cut him off. "I'm already considering it." Silence. Then a short, sharp inhale. "There's no need to escalate. Why don't we meet just the two of us? Tomorrow." "Sorry," I said. "Busy." "Jake, we can work this out. We can offer a generous severance. Clean references, whatever you need." And there it was. Not a threat. A deal. A desperate one. "Goodbye, Brian," I said, and hung up. 10 minutes later, another email came through. Vanessa again. Only this time, my severance package had been doubled. Attached a confidentiality agreement. Marked urgent. They were scrambling. And they still thought this was about money. They didn't understand. It never was. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of anxiety. Out of clarity. The kind that doesn't let you look away. The kind that demands you keep digging. I sat at my desk with a second cup of coffee and a notebook open to a page full of arrows and dates. This wasn't just fraud. It was structure. A well-organized, quiet machine designed to bleed funds in plain sight. I reviewed every Apex transaction again. Then opened a second set of files I hadn't touched in years. Miscellaneous vendor payments. And that's when I saw it. Another name. Lakeside Business Solutions. Not Apex. Not related to any project I'd been assigned. But the pattern was familiar. Payments spaced out perfectly. Invoices phrased in the same vague but official tone. Amounts just high enough to escape questioning. Just like Apex. I traced the registration. Patricia Wilcox. Brian's wife. The web was wider than I thought. Apex was the newer operation. But Lakeside had started 3 years ago. Same playbook. Different actor. Same household. And then came the final thread. Emails. Tucked inside my archive was a collection of internal memos and budget notes. Nothing suspicious at first glance. But buried in a casual note from Daniel to Brian was a phrase, "Lakeside's numbers are locked in. I've adjusted the departmental offsets." He knew. Not just about Apex. About all of it. Daniel hadn't been used. He was complicit. And Jason. His consultancy firm had never gone through proper procurement. No competitive bids. No review. Just a fast-track contract approved under expedited modernization. A bypass. He wasn't there to improve anything. He was there to help remove the one person who might ask the wrong question. Me. I leaned back in my chair and looked at everything spread out before me. Numbers. Names. Connections. The scheme was simple. Too simple. Use fake or inflated vendors. Hide real services behind false prices. Skim the excess and split it. Over 3 years, they'd diverted millions. I didn't have the exact number yet, but I was close. And tomorrow, the board would hear it all. Not from rumor, not from HR whispers, but from me. I didn't go to the board. Not directly. A whistleblower email sent to a general inbox would be dismissed. Too easy to bury. Too easy to frame as bitterness. No, this needed weight. A name. A history. Someone who knew the system, but wasn't buried in it. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a number I hadn't dialed in years. Robert Chen. He was a board member now, semi-retired. Rarely spoke in meetings unless it mattered. But 10 years ago, we'd worked side by side when Meridian was dealing with a major security overhaul. He'd asked the right questions. He'd read the footnotes on audit reports. He was one of the few people in power who actually listened. I called. Jake Wilson, he said on the second ring, sounding surprised. I heard you left Meridian. Not by choice. I replied. Pause. This about why Brian and Daniel have been glued to their offices all week. Probably. I said. Robert. I need 15 minutes. In person. He was quiet a moment. Then said. Where? We met in a small park 3 miles from the company. He was waiting on a bench under a maple tree. Alone. I handed him a sealed envelope and a flash drive. That's everything. I said. Dates. Transactions. Connections. And evidence of Daniel's involvement. He didn't open it. Just held it in his lap. What do you want? Jake. Not my job back. Not revenge. Just truth. In the right hands. He studied me. Why come to me? Because you read audit trails. Because when I talked, you didn't smile politely and move on. You asked follow-ups. You understood consequences. He gave a slow nod. There's an emergency board meeting scheduled tomorrow. Finance committee review. Your timing is impeccable. I'm counting on it. I said. He looked down at the envelope. If this checks out, there will be hell to pay. I know. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A message from Andrea. Someone named Jason Phillips came by the house. Said it was urgent. I told him you weren't home. They were getting desperate. Good. Friday morning came quiet and clear. The kind of morning that pretends nothing is wrong. I sat on the porch with a fresh mug of coffee, watching the neighborhood slowly come to life, sprinklers clicking on, dogs barking, the mail truck making its lazy rounds. Inside, my laptop was waiting. At exactly 8:00 a.m., the message went out. Scheduled, precise, delivered to every board member's inbox at once. Subject line, before you approve Q2 bonuses, please review. This attached was the full report. Vendor records, payment histories, inflated invoices, fake addresses, screenshots, audit trails, access logs, every lie, labeled and time-stamped. At 8:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Then another. And another. Assistants. Legal counsel. Maybe a board member or two. I let them all go to voicemail. By 9:00 a.m., the Emergency Finance Committee was in session. Robert Chen would be there, envelope in hand, watching the looks on their faces as the truth landed in front of them like a live wire. At 9:32, I got a text from Stephen. Police are here. Wilcox and Daniel are being questioned. Phillips looked pale. What did you do? I didn't reply. There was nothing to explain. They were just seeing now what I'd seen weeks ago. At 10:00, my phone rang again. This time, I picked up, Mr. Wilson. This is Patricia Graves, corporate legal counsel for Meridian Technologies. Her voice was measured. To Evan. We need to speak with you. Immediately. I'm available by phone. I said. This really requires an in-person discussion. No, it doesn't. I replied. I've already turned over everything. The board has it all, and the files are backed up in multiple secure locations. If anything happens to me or my family, copies go to the SEC, the IRS, and 3 news outlets. Silence. Then the board is taking this very seriously. Mr. Wilson, several executives have been placed on leave pending further investigation. We would appreciate your cooperation moving forward. You already have it, I said. My part is done. Then I hung up. And just like that, it was no longer my problem. I didn't go into hiding, but I also didn't make it easy to be found. By noon, I was sitting in a small diner 20 miles outside Columbus. Corner booth, back wall, coffee lukewarm, phone face down. I watched the window, not because I expected someone, but because it helped me think. On the television above the counter, muted headlines scrolled across a local business channel. Meridian Technologies under investigation for financial irregularities. No names yet. But they'd come. At 2:04 p.m. My phone lit up. Robert Chen. I answered. It's a bloodbath, he said, skipping any greeting. I waited. Brian cracked. He continued. Tried to cut a deal. Claimed Daniel pushed the whole thing. Said he just went along. And Daniel denying everything. Says had no idea. Blaming Brian for everything. I almost laughed. They'd turned on each other faster than I'd expected. And Phillips claims he was just a consultant. No involvement in financials. But the board isn't buying it. Especially after your records showed his approval bypassed all procurement protocols. Robert took a breath. The board has suspended all three. Forensic accountants are coming Monday. Early estimates suggest around 5 million diverted. I nodded to myself. I'd been close. The board wants to meet, Robert added. Not just to thank you. They're discussing creating a new position, Chief Information Security Officer. Direct report to the board. Independent oversight. They want you. I let the words sit. I'd considered this possibility. But still, hearing it made something shift inside me. I'll think about it, I said. That night, I told Andrea everything. She listened quietly, didn't interrupt, didn't react, just absorbed. When I was done, she asked one question. What do you want to do? I didn't answer right away. The part of me that had burned with anger was cooling now. The fire was nearly out, but in its place was something else solid. Still. And finished. The revenge part was done. Justice had landed. The people who pushed me out were now being pushed out themselves, likely into courtroom benches and indictment documents. But going back to the place that threw me out like I didn't matter, could I walk those halls again? But this time from the top, I need time to decide. I finally said. She nodded. We didn't say anything more that night. But we didn't need to. Monday morning. I put on a suit I hadn't worn in years. It still fit. Barely. The fabric felt heavier than I remembered. Maybe because I wasn't the same man anymore. When I walked into the Meridian lobby, the security guard looked up from his desk and froze for half a second. Then he stood, nodded with surprising formality, and said, "Welcome back. Mr. Wilson. Visitor badge. Executive floor. Elevator ride in silence. For 17 years. I never had a reason to go this high up. No. I was expected. The boardroom door opened. 10 board members. Polished table. Polished people. Robert Chen nodded at me. Calm and steady. The interim CEO, formerly the COO, spoke first. Mr. Wilson, thank you for coming. The situation you brought to light is unprecedented. I didn't speak. The full extent of the fraud appears worse than initially reported. She continued. The forensic team has now identified nearly $2 million in diverted funds. Criminal charges are being prepared. Still, I said nothing. Robert cleared his throat. Jake, the board has unanimously voted to offer you a new position. Chief Information Security Officer, executive level. You'd report directly to us. I placed a folder on the table. And here are my conditions. Non-negotiable. The CEO opened it. Scanned quickly. Her brows lifted. Full audit authority across all departments. Budget veto on financial tech decisions. Independent operational control. I nodded once. No need to repeat myself. This is unusual, she said carefully. So was embezzling 2 million. I replied. Silence. You have until noon, I said, rising. I have other offers. Before I left, Robert asked, Jake, did you plan all this? I stopped at the door. I didn't plan to be fired after 17 years. Everything after that, I looked at them all. That was just me, doing my job. At 11:47, they called. Every condition accepted. 6 months later, I sat in my new corner office, overlooking the skyline. The view was unfamiliar. The authority wasn't. Brian Wilcox had pled guilty. Daniel was still denying everything, his lawyers fighting uphill. Phillips had tried to run. Brazil. He was on his way back now. In handcuffs. The money was being recovered. Most of it. Enough. My old team now reported to me. I'd promoted Steven to lead operations. The kid had heart. He just needed someone to believe in him. A knock. Andrea stood in the doorway. Ready for lunch, she smiled. I grabbed my jacket. We walked through the IT floor. Conversations quieted not from fear, but respect. These people knew. I could have let it burn. I didn't. In the elevator, she reached for my hand. Happy I didn't answer right away. The anger was gone. What was left was stillness. Satisfaction. I'm good, I said. Outside, the October sun warmed our faces. My phone buzzed a message from Robert's security budget increase approved. Unanimous vote. Andrea looked at me. What is it? I slipped the phone into my pocket. Nothing, I said, smiling gently. Just thinking about bridges. Some collapse under their own weight. Others, if you rebuild them right, can be stronger than ever. And I had rebuilt this one right. People ask me now if I regret anything. If I would have done it differently. If I ever felt guilty for bringing down men I once worked beside. And the truth